The suitcase lay battered and forgotten in front of Sarah's porch, rain softly tapping against its worn leather, each drop a whisper of untold stories. Beside it sat a German shepherd, eyes deep as an ocean, quietly pleading for someone to notice. Have you ever had a stranger appear in your life, carrying memories you didn't know you'd lost? And speaking of memories, I'd love to know where you're listening from, because sometimes the most powerful connections start from the simplest moments we share. Sarah Foster had always loved the early morning calm of Brookhaven, where sunlight gently brushed against sleepy houses, waking the town with tender warmth. At 29, with soft auburn hair framing a thoughtful, kind face, Sarah had found quiet contentment, teaching literature at the local high school, cherishing her modest home that overlooked a quiet street lined with maples. Life had settled into comforting rhythms since her parents had retired south, leaving Sarah to weave her daily patterns alone. Still, beneath her gentle smile and patient demeanor, a subtle loneliness lingered, though she rarely spoke of it. That particular morning, as mist hovered lightly over the ground, Sarah stepped onto her porch, steaming cup of coffee in hand, pausing as something unusual caught her eye. At the edge of her yard stood a dog, a German shepherd she had never seen before, his majestic presence oddly contrasted by his thin, weary frame. He appeared calm yet guarded, eyes deep and intelligent, fur matted from his journey, the dark black and rich tan coat carrying signs of hardship. At his feet rested an old leather suitcase, weathered and slightly open, as if the very act of bringing it here had drained the last reserves of his strength. Sarah moved carefully, setting her cup down, watching him intently, curiosity mixing with caution. "Hey there," she called softly, her voice soothing, as she took slow steps toward him. The dog didn't move away or bark, but simply lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting hers with silent appeal. When she reached him, Sarah knelt slowly, gently extending her hand. "It's okay, boy. You're safe now," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. As he sniffed her cautiously and then leaned lightly into her touch, something inside Sarah softened. Trust bridged quickly between them, unspoken yet profound. Turning her attention to the suitcase, she hesitated briefly, feeling the weight of unknown secrets. Carefully lifting the lid, Sarah discovered a small collection of worn belongings, faded photographs showing smiling faces in uniform, a rusted military insignia marked by time and neglect, and beneath them, a yellowed, fragile letter. Her breath caught as she unfolded the paper carefully, her fingers trembling with an emotion she could not yet name. The handwriting was faint, barely legible, but carried the quiet strength of someone who had faced trials Sarah could only imagine. "If you are reading this," it began, "then Axel found you. Please take care of him, as he has taken care of me. My name is James Holloway, and Axel was more than a partner, he was family." Sarah's heart tightened at these words, the sincerity and pain interwoven into every carefully penned line. As she read on, tears blurred her vision, the morning silence amplifying the gentle ache of loss she felt radiating from the page. James had written with the quiet acceptance of someone facing uncertainty, yet holding fiercely to hope, entrusting his most loyal companion with a final mission, to bring his story, and Axel himself, safely home. Axel sat quietly beside her, watching Sarah with steady patience, as though he had known all along that this moment would come. She reached out instinctively, her fingers gently sinking into the thick fur of his neck, and felt the warmth and strength beneath his tired exterior. Axel tilted his head slightly, ears perking forward, silently promising his companionship and protection, even as his weary body leaned gratefully against her hand. In that instant, Sarah understood that her quiet, orderly life had changed irrevocably. Her path had crossed with Axel's for a reason she couldn't yet fully grasp, but one she couldn't deny. Together, they had begun a journey born from compassion and connection, bound by a soldier's legacy and the quiet heroism of a dog who refused to leave behind those he loved. For the first time in many months, Sarah felt not loneliness, but purpose. Looking deeply into Axel's calm, trusting eyes, she whispered gently, "Welcome home, Axel." As the gentle afternoon sun drifted through her kitchen window, Sarah reread the faded letter once more, the words of James Holloway sinking deeper into her heart. James had served in Afghanistan, a dedicated soldier whose smiling photographs revealed a young man with bright blue eyes and an infectious smile, his sandy blonde hair cropped neatly beneath a military cap. In the letter, he had written of Axel with a warmth usually reserved for family, describing the German Shepherd as not only brave and loyal, but compassionate, a gentle companion who had been his comfort amid hardship and uncertainty. Sarah glanced at Axel, who now lay comfortably on the rug beside her, his deep, watchful eyes studying her with an intelligence and empathy that seemed almost human. Even resting, his sleek black and tan coat shone in the sunlit room, giving Axel a dignified air that quietly conveyed his training and resilience. "Did you understand it all, Axel?" she asked softly. He lifted his head, ears tilting slightly toward her voice, a silent reassurance that he indeed understood far more than words could express. Late afternoon arrived, casting golden hues across Brookhaven's quiet streets, when Axel rose suddenly, stretching slightly before, gently nudging Sarah's leg with his muzzle. His purposeful insistence made her smile as she stood up, reaching instinctively for her jacket. "What are you trying to show me?" she whispered affectionately. Axel turned toward the door, his posture straightening as he waited, patient yet determined. Outside, a cool breeze rustled the leaves, guiding them down streets Sarah had known since childhood. Axel led with unwavering certainty, navigating effortlessly until they reached a quiet neighborhood at the edge of town, where older homes sat tucked among tall oak trees. Axel stopped decisively at the gate of an unassuming house, its white paint weathered, shutters worn, windows reflecting years of quiet waiting. Sarah hesitated, sensing that this was more than a simple walk, feeling instinctively that Axel had brought her here for a reason. The front door creaked open cautiously, revealing an older woman standing in its frame, slender and delicate, with silver hair pulled neatly back, her blue eyes reflecting quiet strength tempered by sadness. Sarah recognized her instantly from the photographs. Margaret Holloway, James's mother. Margaret studied Sarah curiously, a gentle confusion on her face, giving way to surprise and then astonishment when her gaze fell upon Axel. Her voice trembled slightly, her eyes filling with tears as she whispered his name. "Axel, is that really you?" The German Shepherd moved calmly forward, tail softly swaying as he approached Margaret, gently pressing his head against her outstretched hand. Sarah watched, deeply moved by the reunion unfolding silently, the quiet tears slipping down Margaret's aged yet graceful face, a mother's love echoing through the silence. After a moment, Margaret looked towards Sarah, gratitude filling her eyes. "You brought him back?" she asked softly. "He found me," Sarah answered gently, stepping forward to introduce herself. Margaret invited them inside, where the warmth of the modest living room wrapped around them like an embrace, walls lined with photographs of James at different ages, innocent childhood moments and proud days in uniform. Margaret began softly recounting memories, sharing James's life in pieces, tenderly recalling the dreams and hopes he had carried before war had taken him away. As evening fell, Sarah saw how Margaret's heart visibly brightened in Axel's comforting presence, the German Shepherd never far from her side, resting his head softly against her knee, silently absorbing every heartfelt word. Sarah understood then the true weight Axel carried, not just memories, but the duty to heal, connect, and comfort those left behind, bearing the emotional scars of loss. When it was time to leave, Margaret gently touched Sarah's hand, her eyes grateful yet tinged with lingering sadness. "Thank you," she whispered, "for bringing a piece of my son home." Walking back beneath a sky painted softly by twilight, Sarah felt profoundly humbled. Beside her, Axel walked with quiet dignity, his mission clear, his spirit unwavering. Glancing down at him, she softly whispered, "You knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you?" Axel tilted his head slightly, a silent confirmation, and Sarah smiled warmly, knowing their journey was only beginning. The days following Axel's reunion with Margaret Holloway unfolded gently, each hour blending into the next with a quiet, comforting rhythm. Axel spent his mornings curled beside Margaret's chair, a steadfast presence that gradually softened her lingering sorrow. Margaret, whose silvery hair framed eyes full of enduring kindness, slowly began to share memories that had remained silent, locked tightly away within her heart for years. Sarah often joined them, quietly listening as Margaret spoke of James's youth, his mischievous grin and boundless curiosity, the warmth in her voice transforming their modest living room into a sanctuary of cherished remembrances. Axel would quietly lift his head at certain stories, ears perking gently, as if he too held these memories close, treasures he had carefully guarded until the right moment. One quiet afternoon, beneath soft sunlight, filtering gently through lace curtains, Margaret reached into a drawer, carefully removing a small, worn notebook. She held it gently, reverently, her fingers trembling slightly as she handed it to Sarah. "This belonged to James," Margaret explained softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He sent it home from Afghanistan, right before that final mission. I've never shared it with anyone before." Sarah carefully opened the notebook, pages worn by time, filled with James's neat handwriting. Reading aloud softly, Sarah felt her voice waver, James's words painting vivid scenes of life overseas, of camaraderie and hardship, of the quiet moments when James would confide his fears and hopes to Axel, his trusted companion. One passage stood out, written just days before the mission from which James never returned. James had described unease among the unit, a mission hastily planned with vague orders, an undercurrent of tension he couldn't fully understand. James had written, "I trust Axel more than anyone here. He senses something isn't right. Whatever happens, I know Axel will keep the truth safe." Margaret listened silently, her eyes glistening with emotion. Axel moved closer, gently placing his head in Margaret's lap, offering comfort through silent companionship. Margaret's hand rested softly on Axel's head, her touch gentle and grateful. "I always suspected something was wrong," Margaret confessed, her voice quietly heavy with long-held pain. "The explanations they gave us never felt right. James's disappearance always felt unresolved, incomplete." Sarah felt Margaret's quiet anguish resonate deeply within her own heart, understanding the profound weight Axel had carried back to them, knowing now that James's trust in his companion had not been misplaced. Axel's steady presence was more than just comfort. He carried within him a truth still waiting to be revealed, an unspoken promise he had yet to fulfill. As Margaret spoke, Sarah noticed Axel's calm, attentive demeanor shift slightly, ears tilting, as if he sensed that Margaret was ready to confront the pain of uncertainty she had borne alone for years. With a deep breath, Margaret continued, recalling the day James had left, describing a final call in which James's voice had sounded strained yet determined, a hidden message lingering in words she had never fully understood until now. He kept repeating that Axel was special, that if anything happened, "I should trust Axel above all else," Margaret whispered, tears softly streaking her gentle face. "Back then, I didn't truly understand. But now, I believe James knew Axel would somehow find his way back home, bringing us the answers we've been missing." Axel quietly raised his head, eyes meeting Margaret's with quiet intensity, confirming with silent dignity that her son's trust had indeed been justified. Sarah reached out softly, her hand gently touching Margaret's port, offering support, as the depth of her loss and the courage of her revelation filled the room. In the silence that followed, Sarah understood that James's story, intertwined so deeply with Axel's journey, was not simply about memories lost or found. It was a story about trust, resilience, and the unspoken bonds that remain long after words fade. Axel had carried James's truth across distances too vast to imagine, driven by loyalty that knew no bounds. Margaret's breathing steadied as she stroked Axel's fur softly, comforted by the gentle strength of the companion who had never truly left her son's side. "We need to find out what really happened," Margaret finally said, determination quietly entering her voice. Axel's ears perked gently, as if in quiet agreement. Sarah nodded softly, realizing their journey was now not only about understanding Axel's past, but about uncovering the truth James had entrusted Axel to reveal. Together, guided by the faithful German shepherd who had never forgotten his promise, they would move forward, healing wounds that only truth could mend. The pale dawn illuminated Margaret's cozy living room, casting gentle shadows across the walls lined with photographs of James smiling proudly in uniform. Axel lay quietly by the fireplace, his large, noble head resting thoughtfully on his paws. Margaret sat beside Sarah, carefully examining the weathered suitcase that had brought Axel to their lives, both feeling the quiet weight of anticipation. As Margaret gently shifted the suitcase, she felt a subtle movement beneath her fingertips, something unusual in the lining. Curiosity sparked in her soft eyes, and she pressed firmly, revealing a hidden compartment. Exchanging a glance with Sarah, she slowly opened the concealed pocket, uncovering a small leather-bound journal, its cover creased with time, the edges worn as though it had traveled far. Margaret's hands trembled slightly as she handed the journal to Sarah, her voice barely audible as she whispered, "This might tell us everything." Sarah took the journal gently, sensing the powerful weight of the words it held within. Her heartbeat quickened as she carefully opened it, pages filled with James's meticulous handwriting, each word carrying the echo of his quiet strength and honesty. The entries detailed James's final weeks overseas, revealing growing concerns about inconsistencies in orders, uncharacteristic secrecy from his commanding officers, and a deepening suspicion that their unit had unknowingly become part of something profoundly wrong. James had described in careful detail a night mission that had unsettled everyone, his notes filled with questions that went unanswered, hints of betrayal threaded through his careful observations. Sarah read aloud softly, her voice shaking slightly as the truth unfolded, painting a vivid, troubling picture of deception and betrayal. Axel sensed it, James had written. He knew before any of us did. If anything happens, he will be the only one left who truly knows what occurred. Axel raised his head slightly at these words, eyes fixed intently on Sarah, as if acknowledging his burden and the vital truth he carried. Margaret listened silently, her gentle features clouded with pain and disbelief. The quiet life she'd built around the grief of losing her son suddenly shifted beneath the weight of revelation. Her whispered voice broke slightly as she spoke. "They lied to us, Sarah. They let me believe it was an accident, a tragedy of war." Axel moved slowly toward Margaret, resting his head gently upon her lap, offering solace in his steadfast presence. Margaret's fingers gently caressed his fur, drawing strength from his quiet reassurance. Sarah, feeling a responsibility she hadn't anticipated, carefully placed the journal back into the suitcase, her heart heavy with James's silent courage and sacrifice. "Margaret," Sarah spoke softly, "we have to find someone we can trust, someone who will listen and help us reveal this truth." Margaret nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of their discovery, knowing that confronting such deception would require bravery she never imagined she possessed. Together, Sarah and Margaret began compiling the evidence, knowing each piece of information would be essential in seeking justice for James. Throughout it all, Axel remained close, a silent guardian who carried the memories of the lost, the keeper of truths he had waited so long to share. His calm presence brought both women a quiet confidence, a silent promise that they were not alone in their quest for truth. Late in the evening, Margaret gently placed her hand on Sarah's shoulder, gratitude evident in her eyes. "Thank you," she murmured softly, "for helping me finally face this." Sarah smiled warmly, her voice firm yet gentle. "It's Axel who deserves the thanks. He never gave up, never abandoned his mission or James's trust." Axel lifted his head slightly, responding with quiet dignity, his deep eyes revealing understanding beyond words. As night settled softly over Brookhaven, Sarah knew their journey had become about far more than finding the truth. It had become a story of courage, trust, and redemption. James had entrusted Axel with his final message, a message the German shepherd had carried faithfully, across oceans and through years, waiting patiently until someone was ready to hear it. Looking into Axel's calm, wise eyes, Sarah silently vowed to honor the truth he had protected, recognizing the immense loyalty and courage it required to carry such a burden. Axel had fulfilled the promise he made to James, and now it was Sarah and Margaret's turn to fulfill theirs. Determination filled Sarah's heart as she prepared to share James's hidden truth. Axel sat patiently at her side, his steady presence strengthening her resolve. They needed someone reliable, someone brave enough to confront the shadows of deception, and Sarah knew precisely whom to trust. Mike Sanders, an investigative journalist and James's old friend, had built his reputation exposing difficult truths, his dark brown hair now lightly threaded with silver, his keen hazel eyes unyielding, reflective of a man committed to integrity above all else. Sarah called Mike early that morning, her voice steady yet urgent as she briefly explained their discovery. Mike listened closely, recognizing the gravity in her words. Without hesitation, he agreed to meet them at Margaret's home, eager to finally uncover the truth behind James's fate. Mike arrived shortly afterward, greeting Margaret warmly before turning his attention to Axel. The German shepherd calmly approached Mike, ears forward, eyes quietly assessing the visitor. Mike knelt and gently extended his hand. Axel sniffed briefly, sensing Mike's earnest intentions, before softly nudging the journalist's palm in quiet approval. Mike smiled, acknowledging Axel's trust as an honor, knowing this remarkable dog had protected his friend's story at great personal risk. Sarah carefully laid out James's journal and the evidence on the table, recounting what they had discovered. Mike examined each item thoughtfully, the lines of concern deepening on his face. "This is more serious than I imagined," he murmured quietly. "James suspected corruption within the military ranks. Exposing this will shake things deeply." As Mike began outlining steps for the investigation, Axel suddenly stiffened, ears sharply alert. The fur along his back rose slightly as he moved protectively closer to Sarah. Outside, a subtle movement caught Sarah's eye, a shadow shifting beneath the trees near Margaret's home. Instinctively, Axel stood tall, his body tense, ready to shield Sarah from harm. His gentle nature vanished beneath a focused, protective instinct honed through years of service. Before anyone could react, the front door burst open, revealing a tall, stern-faced man Sarah had never seen. His cold eyes assessed the room quickly, a dangerous intensity radiating from his rigid stance. Without speaking, he stepped aggressively forward, intent clearly set on the documents laid upon the table. Axel responded instantly, a deep, powerful bark echoing throughout the room as he placed himself firmly between Sarah and the intruder. His stance was formidable, eyes fierce yet calm, a steadfast protector willing to confront any danger for those he cared about. The intruder hesitated momentarily, clearly taken aback by Axel's imposing defense, before regaining his resolve and lunging forward. In that critical instant, Axel sprang forward, intercepting the attacker's movement. Sarah gasped as the struggle ensued, heart racing as Axel, despite the risk, fought bravely to keep the man at bay. Mike quickly moved forward, aiding Axel by firmly subduing the intruder, pinning him securely until local authorities, alerted by Margaret's urgent call, swiftly arrived at the scene. When the danger subsided, Axel returned immediately to Sarah's side, breathing deeply yet calmly, his gentle eyes reassuring her of his unshaken loyalty and protective devotion. Margaret moved toward Axel, her gentle hands caressing his head gratefully, whispering words of heartfelt thanks to the dog who had once again honored James's trust with unwavering courage. After the attacker was taken away, Mike carefully gathered the evidence. "They know we're close," he warned softly, eyes serious yet determined. "But we won't be stopped. James's truth deserves to be known." Margaret nodded solemnly, pride and resolve mingling softly on her gentle face. Sarah placed her hand firmly on Axel's shoulder, drawing strength from his quiet bravery, realizing fully how deeply they had become united by the shared commitment to justice. As evening arrived, filling the room with warm, fading sunlight, Sarah, Margaret, Mike, and Axel sat together quietly, feeling the weight and importance of their journey. Axel lay peacefully beside Sarah, resting quietly yet vigilant, a comforting guardian whose courage had protected not only Sarah's safety, but also James's truth, a truth they now carried forward together, refusing to be silenced by fear. In the weeks following their confrontation, a gentle sense of healing gradually replaced the shadows that had hung over Margaret's home. Mike's courageous reporting brought James's story to light, exposing the painful truths hidden for too many years. Justice moved swiftly, as those responsible were held accountable, and James Holloway's honor was finally restored. Brookhaven buzzed quietly with a mixture of relief and gratitude, the townspeople moved by the bravery that had brought their local hero's legacy back to life. Axel, ever calm and dignified, quickly became a beloved figure around town, admired not only for his courage but also for his quiet devotion and unwavering loyalty. Local families stopped by often, bringing treats and affection, warmly thanking the German shepherd who had protected and comforted Margaret and Sarah through the hardest times. His noble presence provided reassurance, gently reminding everyone of the strength that can be found even in quiet perseverance. Sarah and Margaret, bonded by their shared journey, spent tranquil evenings together, often speaking softly of James, sharing warm memories once overshadowed by grief. Axel remained quietly nearby, his warm brown eyes filled with understanding, silently offering comfort whenever sadness gently resurfaced. Margaret, her silver hair shining softly in the lamplight, found peace she hadn't known possible, soothed by the companionship of those who had come to mean so much to her. One bright afternoon, Brookhaven held a small ceremony honoring James and Axel in the town square, a simple yet heartfelt gathering beneath gentle blue skies. Margaret stood proudly, her soft voice sharing words of gratitude and remembrance, her graceful dignity deeply moving all who listened. Mike Sanders, with respectful sincerity, recounted James's story, honoring both the fallen soldier and the faithful companion who had carried his truth home. Axel sat quietly at Sarah's feet, humble yet attentive, receiving the town's affectionate applause with calm dignity. Later that evening, as twilight cast warm, golden hues over Brookhaven, Sarah sat on Margaret's porch, Axel at her side. She gently ran her fingers through his thick black and tan fur, her heart filled with gratitude for the extraordinary journey they had shared. Margaret joined them, settling into her favorite chair, smiling warmly as she watched Axel affectionately lean into Sarah's gentle touch. "He's found his home here," Margaret softly remarked, eyes filled with quiet affection. "James would be proud." Sarah nodded, her voice gentle yet certain. "Axel gave us back something priceless. He didn't just return James's story. He brought us hope." Axel looked up, ears perking forward slightly as if acknowledging her words, his calm gaze reflecting a depth of understanding that no words could fully capture. Margaret reached over gently, her aged hand resting on Axel's shoulder, her soft voice quietly affirming, "You truly are our hero." As the stars emerged softly overhead, Sarah and Margaret shared quiet conversation, laughter mingling gently with moments of thoughtful silence. Axel remained close, contentedly watching over them, his heart at peace knowing he had fulfilled his promise to James. In those gentle hours beneath the quiet beauty of evening, Sarah understood fully that Axel had come to mean more than either of them could have anticipated. He had become family, the quiet guardian who had woven his devotion and bravery seamlessly into their lives. In the days that followed, Brookhaven slowly settled back into peaceful routines, yet now enriched by the quiet legacy Axel and James had left behind. Margaret often spoke to visitors of Axel's courage, gently reminding all who listened that loyalty and love could outlast even the deepest shadows. Axel's gentle presence became an enduring symbol in their quiet town, a living reminder of courage, selflessness, and unwavering devotion. Sarah and Margaret knew, deep within their hearts, that Axel had not only brought truth to light, but had quietly guided them toward healing, teaching them strength in the quiet moments of everyday life. Through Axel's steadfast heart, James's memory now lived brightly, forever honored in their gentle town, his spirit peacefully intertwined with those he had loved most deeply. Axel lay quietly, his warm gaze serene and knowing, a gentle guardian whose quiet strength had illuminated their lives, gently guiding them home at last. Sometimes, the greatest heroes walk quietly beside us, their loyalty speaking louder than words, their sacrifices felt deeply within our hearts. Axel taught Sarah and Margaret that love and devotion can heal even the deepest wounds, guiding them gently back to life's brighter paths. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing, joining our journey as we share more moments of courage, compassion, and hope.